Fitness concerns on a number of the nights. Paul Harrigan and Adam Muir watched the final session from the sideline after their efforts with New South Wales. Matthew Johns aggravated his injured knee during training, while brother Andrew was ruled out before it even started.
Probably best if I set the Norths game out, so another week on the sideline.
All in all, it's not the best preparation. Matthew was given specialist treatment, and despite the scare at this stage, he'll play. There's plenty of motivation for Johns. Last round against the Bears at North Sydney Oval, the star 5'8" was sent off.
I hopefully get one back on him. You know, it was disappointing before to reduce the guys to 12 men, and I think the scores would have been more than reversed in the first round if we had 13 guys out there.
9 players will back up from State of Origin duties, and while some of them struggled today, Adam Muir has no doubts the aches and pains will be gone by Sunday.
A few blokes got a few scores to settle in. I think it's always a bit of a grudge match.
Newcastle is slight favourites to score its 8th win of the season. The players hoping to get on a roll in the countdown to the finals.
We've got a tremendous opportunity now if we come home with a wet sail that we can, there's a chance we can finish minor premiers. You know, there's no reason why we can't.
NBN's coverage after the Sunday night movie. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
It was business as usual at ATMs throughout Newcastle today. However, at some, as the money was being withdrawn, there was no prospect of it being replaced. Armoured cars at Bramble's Sandgate depot sat idle behind locked gates. Drivers are refusing to replenish ATMs with cash over the company's plan to hire contractors.
We haven't been given any reason why that's happening. There's been no complaints about productivity or efficiency, and we really can't accept it.
The union claims the use of contractors could cost each driver $5,000 a year in lost wages. The contractors would take over some of the functions now carried out by drivers, such as servicing ATMs when they break down. The union says it regrets any inconvenience to bank customers, but maintains it has their interests at heart.
What I would say to the customers that may be inconvenienced over this weekend is the evidence from Sydney shows that if this new player comes in, there's going to be a lot more inconvenience on a lot more occasions.
Attempts to contact Bramble's management for a comment today were unsuccessful. The ATM ban will remain in place until at least Monday morning, when drivers will meet to consider their next move. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Written by Brian York. Staging paid $1.80 and $1.10, $2.20 and $7.90 for the places. The trifecta won $79.80. Timeless Wins was the one the punters wanted in the $75,000 Diamond Stud Stakes. And the smart money on the favourite was right on the mark. It paid $2.60 and $1.50, $2.40 and $1.70, the Quinella $17 and the trifecta $59.20. In Sydney at Rosehill Gardens and the Joanne Series final, and bookmakers got one back. And Clarefield Lass paid $60.20 and $12.60. Good returns also for Kathy's Joy. The trifecta $22,579.50. Central Charlestown made the trip to Townsend Oval last night, but within minutes of kick-off, the Butcher boys must have realised they would have been better off at home. A Paul Davies bust opened the way for Greg Williams to post the first points of the match. The Lions soon pushing even their own players out of the way to get into the action. South Newcastle setting the tune with 4-pointers at will. A barging run from Todd Buckingham increased the home side's advantage. Danny Wells also shrugging off the opposition to put Souths completely in control. At the siren, 72-14 to Souths. It was their 7th win of the season, Central Charlestown's biggest loss. This afternoon at Waratah Oval, the Pumpkin Pickers opened the scoring with a try after only 5 minutes. Before the touch, judges foiled their attempts to go further in front from a Steve McNabb penalty. No questioning Paul Roll's efforts in the corner. Then, just as it was looking at being another runaway result, the Cheetahs replied with a double of their own. 10-all at half-time, it started a great second-half comeback, the Cheetahs going on to win 28 points to 18.
Southerly winds of up to 107 kilometres an hour lashed the Newcastle coastline yesterday and overnight, causing havoc both on and off land. A Merryweather house gutted by fire 6 weeks ago had much of its roof torn off by the howling gale. Firefighters bravely climbed onto the charred rafters to tie the corrugated iron down. Huge seas above 7 metres buffeted the shore, forcing authorities to close the harbour because the bar was too dangerous to cross. It will reopen at 2 a.m. tomorrow for outbound vessels only. Another assessment will be made at 7 a.m. Port Stephens is also closed until further notice. Most of the rain fell on the coast and adjacent ranges, with the Upper Hunter only receiving patchy falls. Newcastle recorded 54 millimetres during the storm. Forecasters say the brunt of the wild weather has passed, but showers will continue through to Thursday. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Tonight's documentary is a tribute to the dedication and courage of team members of the Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service. Crews are located in Newcastle and Lismore, but serve regions far beyond their home bases. The Rescue Helicopter Service relies on community support. Donations can be made at any Westpac branch.
It was an indication of the deep impact the helix contamination scare had on the northwest that 300 of the 500 cattle producers affected turned out at Narrabri RSL Club today. Some driving several hours to attend the meeting to hear ICI's offer of an out-of-court settlement, one aimed at avoiding a potentially long and expensive court battle, and one that was flatly rejected by disgruntled producers.
It was a completely unanimous vote. There was not one single dissenting voter in that whole group.
The trouble began when the region was gripped by drought in 1994. Cattle producers fed stock with cotton trash which had been sprayed with helix. The infected stock were then unable to be sold, sending some producers into financial ruin.
It has cost me a lot of money financially, as well as stress and the fact that I've had to manage without an income for that period of time.
Producers took their case to the High Court, but say the company's offer is simply not good enough.
But it's unworkable in that it is an offer of a global settlement which requires a provision to be made for those who haven't yet come forward, identified themselves and quantified their losses.
The court is expected to hand down its findings based on evidence so far this Friday. The case is expected to go before the court for hearing in August. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
Nearly a lifetime ago, Jim Comerford went down his first mine, aged just 14. He may have replaced the pick for a pen, but there remains one constant: coal. Australia's link with the black mineral goes back even further, Captain Cook establishing the first connection even before he sailed south.
When the expedition he led was being planned, he recommended the Whitby coal boat as the most suitable for the type of work they had in front of themselves. So the endeavour was a coal boat.
Jim Comerford's book, Coal and Colonials, takes up the story from there, tracing the industry's history over more than 200 years. It covers all the highs and lows, including the Rothbury riot of the 1930s, where police fired on striking miners, killing one man. The author was a fresh-faced 16-year-old of that tragedy, and although times have changed, he believes modern miners have traded safety for money.
And I'm convinced that bonus played a big part in the YE disaster. We tried hard to keep the bonus out, and the owners kept putting it in the pan.
The book is just his latest contribution to the coal industry, which includes a 20-year stint as the president of the Northern Mineworkers Federation. Jim Comerford was given the ultimate honour by his mates last year, with a miners' memorial wall at Cessnock bearing his name. The book will be officially launched at Fort Scratchley on Sunday. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Together, the two parcels cover 1,100 hectares of near pristine bushland. Recent surveys by the National Parks and Wildlife Service have confirmed the area's rich biodiversity and Aboriginal heritage values.
Flame Cove and Mount Karua have escaped major development for many, many years, virtually since white settlement back in the 1820s. So they're in very good condition.
In 1995, the owner of the land, construction giant Boral, offered the state government first option to buy. Estimates put the value of the land at almost $3 million. Now, in a letter to the Friends of Fame Cove Group, an advisor to Environment Minister Pam Allen confirms negotiations have begun, although the letter stresses the funds available to acquire new land for environmental purposes is severely limited and that an alternative proposal has been put to the company.
Boral have been patient and given the government time to assess their situation and come up with some ideas. But while both parties are talking, we're happy that the process continues.
There's no deadline to conclude negotiations, and the Minister's office cautions they could take some considerable time. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Reaching final agreement on a $1 billion contract that will see in the Australian Air Force's new generation of jet training aircraft seemed reason enough for the Prime Minister to tour the British aerospace plant, similar to one to be built at Williamtown next year.
Yeah, people hope that there's life beyond the other industry. And
it's old news in that we've known about this since November last year, but apart from that, it is welcome because it's a new type of industry for Newcastle and the Hunter region.
33 of the jets will be sold to Australia, the first 12 complete, the rest to be assembled at Williamtown. With the chance to take the driver's seat of a Hawk, Mr Howard welcomed the prospect of new jobs and investment in the Hunter in the wake of BHP's decision to shed 2,500 steel workers in Newcastle.
It's not going to help the BHP situation in that most of those skills at BHP can't be readily transferred.
In the $60 million boost to the area, 150 jobs will be involved in the construction of the facility. Another 180 workers will be involved assembling the aircraft. Williamtown will also become the service centre for Hawk jets from throughout Asia, adding to the Hunter's growing capability in defence-related industry.
There are, for example, some 700 Hunter businesses already involved in defence.
Further government announcements on jobs and industry assistance are expected when the Prime Minister visits next month.
But the Prime Minister is still committed to providing $10 million. I've got a letter today from the Prime Minister indicating that he will be visiting here in July, and I imagine that he'll be making some announcements about what the Commonwealth will be doing with its $10 million commitment.
Six-year-old Tess Orton is a danger to herself and a wonder in the eyes of her parents. Nearly 2 years ago, she suffered what's thought to have been a severe episode of encephalitis, causing brain damage. It nearly killed Tess and changed the normal life she and her family knew. Left with epilepsy, visual impairment, mental disability and behavioural difficulties, Tess spent months in hospital before returning to the family property at Merriwar.
You're beautiful, aren't you, Tess?
Tessa's wanderings proved dangerous and her family appealed for help to build fences around their home to keep her from harm's way. The Merriwar Police organised a raffle to buy materials. St Heliers inmates provided the labour and Tess now has a safe new yard.
I'd just like to thank all those people that have been involved in the getting together and getting behind us to build this fence to try and make things a bit safer for Tess.
If a mix of youth and experience is the tonic for success, the Barbarians are looking good. At training in Newcastle this morning, the team prepared for the clash against the French. Phil Kearns will captain the side as he tries to break back into the Wallabies.
It's fantastic to be sort of back. You know, I've played a few games for New South Wales and hopefully be able to fight my way back into a test team if I put some more decent performances on the field.
It was a session that had just about everything. They started off with touch football, before breaking into forwards and backs, eventually coming together for a serious team run. The result, perfect. With test spots always on the line, the Barbarians need no motivation. The French will derive theirs from Saturday's loss in Sydney.
You don't beat the French and then come and expect an easy game straight after that. So, they'll come out all guns blazing. Australian
two-try hero Mitch Hardy joins the Barbarians.
I think he's pretty keen to get 80 minutes and see if he can score more than 2.
So too former Novocastrian Stuart Pinkerton.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be really good. I think a lot of my friends are going to come out and watch. A lot of my mates from down here, so it'll be good.
The match kicks off at 7:30. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Around 60% of Australia's exports are bound for Asian markets, and the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce is determined to boost that figure. In an address to the Chinese business people and academics at the Newcastle University, representatives from the Chamber and other industries outlined the region's assets.
What we're trying to do is to really welcome them as a friendly region of Australia, a place where they're welcome to do business.
The group is in Australia for the Donghua International Festival, a Chinese initiative designed to explore economic, trade and cultural opportunities between the two countries. Mr Simmons said the area's wines and the university's facilities were of particular interest and says the chance to meet face-to-face with potential trading partners was invaluable.
It's about gaining confidence, developing those relationships so that they feel comfortable, and then of course you feel comfortable in developing a business relationship with them over time.
Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
The motion of the ocean could be the answer to Newcastle's greenhouse gas emissions. The company Energotech is considering the city as the location of its first wave energy system, which uses the surf to generate electricity. While the idea is nothing new, the technology is, and it's better than ever before.
We focus the wave energy, and that hasn't been done before. The second one is the turbine. It's like no other turbine in the world.
The $1 million system works on a rock face by channeling the waves into a point and amplifying their height. The waves then create a rush of air, which drives a turbine, creating electricity. We all know the ocean is a force to be reckoned with. By harnessing just some of its might, Energotech says its system could power 2,000 homes in Newcastle with the electricity that is both clean and cheap. In ideal conditions, the company says wave power costs a fraction of wind and solar energy. Eager to expand its sustainable energy sources, council is keen to bring wave power on board.
I think this is a magnificent idea. I think the concept's great, it's innovative, and it's the sort of thing, given what's just happened with the Pathways Conference, it's the sort of thing that all Newcastle and Novocastrians should embrace.
With Wollongong the main rival for the system, council may consider lobbying the state and federal government for funds to ensure it wins the scheme. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
On June 25th, 1847, the Anglican diocese was founded in Newcastle. And on that same day, a Roman Catholic diocese was created at Maitland. Last night, the Anglican and Catholic dioceses joined together to mark their 150-year history. The guest speaker for the evening was renowned Australian novelist and prominent theologian Maurice West. West, who spent several years in a Catholic monastery, joined 400 others at the Thanksgiving service. And in a service of another kind, the historic barracks at the James Fletcher Hospital was officially dedicated as a chapel today. The day was celebrated with an opening service, and the chapel will be opened daily as a place of worship and prayer for the patient, staff, family and friends of the hospital. Antonia Kidman, NBN News. The larger-than-life vessel is the long-time ambition of engineer Ernie Walker, and after a slight disruption to the building schedule, he's now one step closer to achieving that goal. Problems began when the company commissioned to build the vessel went broke, so the Cat has been sitting in a truck yard since Christmas. The trip from Hexham to Sydney will be in 2 stages, with an evening stopover at the Hawkesbury before heading to Sydney in the morning. Work on the vessel will resume in Sydney and is expected to take about 18 months. Ernie Walker hopes that the job will be finished without any more hiccups. His dream is to one day commercially sail it off Queensland's Barrier Reef. So big is the Cat that the 3 northbound lanes of the Hexham Bridge were blocked to enable it to cross the Hunter River. Antonia Kidman, NBN News.
Because it's so much fun and you get meet so many friends and it's so cool.
The competition was the brainchild of the Newcastle Regional Museum as part of a program to encourage students to enjoy technology.
Competition is designed to get school kids involved in some high technology.
So what exactly is a bilby?
A bilby is a little self-propelled robot with wheels that has to read where it's going and work out how to follow a maze.
The race was a joint project between 2 high schools, Waratah and Merewether, and the University of Newcastle. The students were responsible for building the robots and programming their computer chips. A series of heats were run throughout the day, and contestants included Super Snail, Bilby in a Basket, and Marsupial Mania. After a hard day of racing, the organisers were pleased to announce a champion. The odds-on favourite, Dagmobile. Antonia Kidman, NBN News.
When the big Australian announcer would quit steelmaking in Newcastle earlier this year, workers vowed to fight the decision until the protests were heard all the way to BHP headquarters in Melbourne. But at BHP's Results and Prospects seminar today, the company showed no signs of backing down. Its future path now appears as predictable as the route of a Melbourne tram.
Oh, that decision won't be reversed. It's a firm decision. We've got to move on into the future. I think the important thing now is that all of the interested parties, everybody involved, has got to focus on how we can go forward.
BHP will close its steelworks in Newcastle in 1999 at a cost of 2,500 jobs. The company based the decision on the McMaster's report, an investigation into the viability of steelmaking in Australia. But BHP refuses to release the report that's determined the lives of workers and the fate of a city.
We use a whole host of inputs. Impossible to collect that all in one document and lay that out on the table, but certainly talking to people about the decision-making process.
The hunters' loss will be whalers' gain in South Australia. BHP denying reports some steel production could be moved offshore. Newcastle will have to be satisfied with an upgraded wire mill, as the steelworks increasingly look set to become part of the city's past. Richard O'Leary in Melbourne for NBN News.